Welcome back to Against the Cage, your MMA home for all the fight previews, recaps, and exclusive interviews that I know you're looking for. So make sure to give us a like and subscribe so you don't miss out on any of that stuff. My name is Jake Aryeh. I'm here with my esteemed co-hosts Scott Fontana and Erich Richter. And guys, let's talk UFC 323 coming up this weekend. It is the last pay-per-view of the ESPN era before we move on to Paramount Plus. And Erich, you wrote an article talking to Dana White, talking about the pay-per-views not being dead, quote unquote. But I have to ask you guys, and Erich, I'll throw this to you because you were the one who talked to Dana. Do you think that this will be the last pay-per-view that MMA fans will ever have to buy?
Well, if I said so, and you mentioned it, right? I talked to Dana in August, and I'll just read the quote. I'll start with that. And you know what? Back it up. I'm going to say there won't be a pay-per-view, definitely not in 2026. After that, I think that there is a possibility in 2027 or 2028 where they get a little creative and maybe talk to CBS and get some stuff going. So I'll just read the quote. This is Dana White's voice. Let's say there's a scenario. I'm involved in boxing, I'm involved in slapping, I'm involved in jiu-jitsu, and I'm involved in the UFC. What I love about this business is I can lay out what we think the fights are going to be for a year, and a fight will pop up that I never saw coming. A star will pop up out of nowhere, out of somewhere. Anything is possible, and you could do a one-off pay-per-view. I am going to be on pay-per-view this Saturday. Pay-per-view is not dead. That is a quote from Dana White, August of 2025. If I were to guess, I'd say, potentially that something creative happens 2027, 2028. It won't be a lot. I'd say the over-under is probably a half of a pay-per-view. There might be a pay-per-view over the span of the CBS deal, but I would be mind blown if it happens before 2028, really. Definitely not anytime soon. So your wallets will be, pretty happy about that.
Pretty safe. Scott, what do you think?
There's obviously let's give a little context to what Dana said when he spoke to Erich. That was a day where a lot of like the left hand and the right hand didn't seem like they were on the same page as far as, the Paramount people and the UFC people. It didn't seem like they kind of had everything really ironed out. So who knows even how much Dana would even commit to that being the case now. He's been saying a lot of like, hey, now that we're not having pay-per-view anymore kind of thing in the new year. There have been more allusions to that in recent times since then. So I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't rule it out either. I think it's very realistic to just say never, but also I'm kind of hoping we're in one of those no going back situations, right? Where people get so used to not paying for these events that they would completely reject the idea of having to do so again, and that it would be way too much of a financial risk for pretty much everybody involved. So unless Paramount, has a way that they're going to make a lot of money off of a pay-per-view, I imagine that the UFC probably needs to give their best stuff to Paramount and that kind of thing. So if they're not doing that, they'd have to cut some sort of deal. I don't know the particulars, right? We don't even know if there's anything written into their contracts that allows them that type of freedom. But I'm just going to go with what we have right now, which is for the life of the Paramount deal, which I believe was 7 years. It should not be a pay-per-view situation there until proven otherwise. But I wouldn't say never either.
Yeah, I think, Erich, what you said, the over-under being 0.5 sounds about right. I feel like there's maybe one thing that if all the stars aligned, that maybe it would make sense. But besides that, I just would see there being too much blowback and people being like, all right, well,
So
you said it
I don't
wasn't
even think
happening.
I don't even think that people care about the blowback. I don't think that Dana White or in particular the UFC would even care about the blowback. I
Yeah, I
think that if
guess.
they put together a card that was so massive, let's just I mean the White House card, right? We've talked about that ad nauseum. If they were to throw John Jones and Conor McGregor onto the same card, maybe for a future one, not on the White House card, but if they were to throw something like that crazy together where the salaries for the two fighters of John Jones and Conor McGregor were so exorbitant that they felt that they could justify a payment of a pay-per-view for it, then I think, yeah, maybe. But again, like John Jones is unreliable, Conor McGregor's unreliable, Ronda Rousey's not coming back, Brock Lesnar's old. Like there's really not a star right now that's really worth paying for. At least now that we're going on to Paramount.
Yeah, I'm gonna take the under on that, the over under a half. So I think I feel pretty good about that because realistically, this scenario that you presented is just such a prohibitive and frankly unrealistic environment for them to do that, right? Because if they're establishing that they want to do something massive for the White House and they want to put that on Paramount Plus, so you don't have to pay for it. That's a high bar that they're starting to establish that you don't even have to pay for. So,
Yeah.
when are we paying for it again?
Yeah, and that'll also probably be it could be one of the things that would be going on cable television, right? Because they did say that in the press release. You know,
Yes.
some of these are that could be one of them. So if they're putting that on cable, like, what's the bar for pay-per-view, right? I think it's time to talk about the main event of 323, though. We've got Merab Dvalishvili rematching Petr Yan. The pair had fought initially, I believe, in 2023, if I'm not mistaken. Merab wins in a very dominant fashion, but we got to talk about the other facet to this fight, and that's that Merab is going for a 4th title defense in a calendar year. And guys, there are stats and achievements that kind of elude MMA fighters as like mythical 3 belts across 3 divisions, right? There's Anderson Silva's record, 4 fights, 4 title defenses in 1 year. Scott, how special of a feat is this for Merab to attempt?
I think this is the ultimate accomplishment for an active UFC champion, winning 4 title fights in a single year. Like that particular thing has not been done before. We've had 5 men who've pulled off the, 4 title victories within, 365 days. Most recently, Alex Pereira did that from 2023 into 2024. Very impressive in and of itself, right? But there's something that kind of makes this particular element unique, doing it 4 times in a single year, and they're all title defenses too. It's not just someone won the title and that kind of thing. That's been even done before in that little, 365-day window. But it's just so clean, man. Like to be able to just say, okay, this is beautiful. It's simple. It's the year of Merab if he's able to do this. 4 title defenses in a single year. That spits out easy. We understand it. It's very, 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 very rare. I don't know that we could see it again unless he's able to do it next year, like he's talking about. Of course, he's got to take care of this weekend, and then he'd have to take care of it several more times. But God, the guy wants to do it 2 years in a row. He's a maniac in the best kind.
Eric, what do you think?
I mean, it's unbelievable when you look at like the fighters that have done the 3. You're talking Alex Pereira, Kamaru Usman, Chuck Liddell, Matt Hughes. Like it's unbelievable that Merab's going for 4. And I mean, even Dana White has said it in the past. He's a promoter's dream. Like he wants to fight consistently. He's probably making really good money right now. So Merab's loving life. I mean, yeah, I mean, I don't disagree. It's an impressive feat, man. Like it's really unbelievable the fact that he's able to go with this high pressure, high volume style and not take crazy amounts of damage, so that he is able to fight this frequently at a championship level. You just don't see it.
It's amazing. Scott, I think you phrased it perfectly in terms of like this is the ultimate achievement for an active champion, which like you hear champions say like that's what they want and go for, and like it's pretty rare that actually ends up coming into fruition. Merab is that guy. He is. Mhm.
I feel like a lot of times the UFC isn't necessarily interested in doing that, right? Like the stars have to align on both sides. I think there have probably been fighters who have had that belt before, and realistically, they'd even be willing to do it. But does it align with the UFC's plans and all that kind of thing? So it's not just like all the other factors affecting that one fighter. The UFC literally needs to be like, yeah, we kind of want that.
Yeah.
And they don't always. So the fact that everything aligned here seems incredibly unique. I frankly, have my doubts that it can happen again next year, like Merab is hoping for and aspiring to, because I have a feeling the UFC would move in a different direction, but who knows? You never know.
Yeah, and I think like Volkanovski, I think is a pretty good example of one of those fighters who like would like to have fought more frequently, but like the calendar slots are kind of already taken up. And I think that one thing that can maybe attribute to why Merab has been able to is like I think they're more willing to throw on the lower weight classes as a co-main event, like 125 and 135, like you saw in January with the Islam Makhachev fight. Merab also being on that one too. Whereas maybe in the higher weight classes, they're like, we want to save those guys for their own main event slot, right?
I think you're onto something, but also don't forget he's headlining this
Yes,
weekend,
of course,
and he
of course.
also headlined in Newark. So
Of
half
course.
the time he was the top billed fighter on the card. So there's that.
Right.
Not
right.
small cards either.
No, of course not. But I think that take that helps it take it from like where maybe he only would have been able to have 2 or 3 to that whopping 4 number. So yeah, but it's amazing. And Eric, like you mentioned before, in terms of Merab's ability to fight so frequently. Scott had spoken to Merab recently, and Merab revealed that he wanted to fight for another 15 more years. So let's take a look at that clip.
My goal is to fight 15 more years here in UFC. I won't be always champion in this next couple of years, like next 50 years, but my goal is to stay busy and keep fighting.
15 years. You want to fight till you're 49, 50?
50 years.
So, Erich, having seen that, what do you think? Do you believe him? What do you think about that comment from Merab?
Oh, I believe him. Merab is loving life right now. He's the champ. He's definitely making a lot of money right now. Like, obviously, I have no idea how much. I would venture to guess he's making 7 figures a fight. Like, he is getting paid very well right now. So, yeah, I mean, he hasn't taken that much damage. He's got that high volume, high grappling pressure. He's getting better by the day, which something that I've had issues with in the past is when grapplers start falling in love with the striking. We saw Merab like willing to strike with O'Malley, like he's willing to kind of go there on striking now, which I just find fascinating. He's improving rapidly, is my point. And we're going to talk about that fight with Petr Yan a little bit later, but he's improving rapidly. And so, yes, do I believe him that he will want to ride this out and fight as long as he can? Yes. However, and we've seen this in the past, and we'll talk about it when we get to final round, the chin doesn't really recover. And, as long as he can continue avoiding damage like this, then yes. But eventually, yes, we worry about damage accumulation in the sport.
Scott, what did you think when he said that, when you were talking to him?
Look, when he said it to me, it was kind of like, wait, 50, and it sounds crazy, but then you think about it and you're like, you know what? There's a lot of people who actually fight to 50. Anderson Silva has taken a boxing match against Tyron Woodley, who I should point out is one of the guys who won 4 title fights within 365 days. Mm-hmm. He's actually one of those very few who's done that.
Tyron,
yeah, I know. And you kind of Tyron.
Wow. Oh my God!
Tyron Woodley did that. This was before your time, Jake. It was a little before you jumped in, but yeah, no, he did that. He did absolutely. There was a time where he was very active.
Wow.
And it was a very slight window, but he did that. At any rate, yeah, we got people fighting at 50 years old. Is the UFC going to employ him to fight or contractually independently contract him to do that till he's 50? Mm-hmm. Probably not. I don't think we could sit there and say he's going to do that. That's actually going to happen, but. I mean, for goodness sake, he's the type of fighter that you could actually see it happening for because he's so crazy. Again, in that good way, like I mentioned, there's the Dungeons and Dragons chart of like good versus evil and lawful versus chaotic. He is chaotic good to a T for this sport. So we got to respect that.
So one story that I'll share about Merab Dvalishvili, back well before we had this podcast and well before I was doing fighter interviews, I went to Ariel Helwani's show, which was The Ringer, and I met Ariel and I talked to him, and I was downstairs and Merab Dvalishvili was there, and he was talking to Ariel. I think he did an interview with Ariel at the show, and we were downstairs by ourselves, and Merab's like, "Screw this, I'm going to the bar. Go upstairs." And he's like, "Anyone want to come with me?" And we go upstairs with him, and Merab just goes upstairs, drinks with all the fans, hangs out with the fans, going wild for hours, and then comes back down and does an interview for the actual show once it began later on. He's awesome.
He's a normal dude. He's a very normal dude.
In some ways. In other ways, I feel like he
is. All right. You know what? Fair enough. Yes. Man of the people is a better way. I like that.
Yeah, man of the people. And that's
man of the people. That's exactly right.
Honestly, I felt like really like you feel like a sense of like worry when someone says like I want to fight till I'm 50, because obviously you worry for like their health, but like a little part of me was like, yes, like if you're ever concerned about him like not being in our lives or in the sport competing in the near future, because he's already accomplished so much, and he's not like super young, especially for a bantamweight. Right now you've got a little bit of something to look forward to in terms of his career. And I mean, he's got another thing coming up on Saturday night as he goes to defend against Petr Yan. So do you guys want to talk about Petr Yan after getting through Merab? Scott.
Sure. Let's do it.
Let's do it. Scott, I have to ask you. So obviously we started with Merab out of respect for him, the champion foremost, but it feels like way more people are talking about Merab, and obviously this uh, incredible accomplishment that he's going after by just defending his title in 4 years. Doesn't feel like a lot of people are talking about Petr Yan, and obviously that could have to do with the first fight that they had. But I have to ask you: does he sort of feel like an afterthought, and if so, should he be?
So, yeah, he absolutely is an afterthought here. And that doesn't mean that no one cares about him, but I mean, I think it really does have a lot to do with that first fight. We saw a destruction of a younger person who had actually already been champion. Somebody that, frankly, I actually foresaw Petr Yan having like a pretty lengthy title reign. It didn't go that way, obviously. But he's only 32 years old even now. He's still 2 years younger than Merab, as he will always be forever, right?
I
But
was just thinking that.
but right. But really, the problem with Yan here is the fact that he's just not finishing anybody. It's been 5.5 years since he won a fight inside the distance. That's not really a formula that sets up very well against Merab, who's kind of like, look, he can finish fights now. We've started to see the finishing aspects of Merab start to come into a finer view. But also, he's generally winning on the cards, and his style is such that he would win for more frequently on the cards. So, what is Petr Yan's path here, man? It's kind of tricky. So, it's going to be a tall order to get him, especially over 5 rounds. 3 rounds maybe, but 5 rounds is tricky.
100%. Eric, I want to get your thoughts before I go.
So this fight, it's a tough matchup for him because Petr Yan is the fighter who wants to kind of download some data, start slow, maybe pick it up at the end of the second round, win 3, 4, and 5. You can't do that against Merab because his cardio is better than yours. It's better than everybody's. So while Petr Yan might have the advantage of doing that against, maybe a Sean O'Malley over 5 rounds or a Song Yadong or, Marcus McGee last time, he started slow, builds his way back up. We just haven't seen any urgency from the guy in a long time. And, he fights on thin margins on the feet and he doesn't have a grappling advantage. So when he has a grappling advantage, it's fine. But he fights on thin margins on the feet and is going to be clearly deficient in the grappling against Merab. It's a bad. The math doesn't math on that one for Petr. It's tough.
Yeah, I can't. I haven't seen anything that would suggest that the fight is going to go very differently otherwise. I mean, like, obviously Petr has now, had that first fight under his belt to know what Merab is going to go for, but other people have known what Merab is going to go for in terms of just like tiring you out and making it his kind of fight, and it hasn't worked out for them in the past. So it's tough. It is a very tall task for Petr Yan, I would say.
Can I just add, Petr Yan has an 85% takedown defense rate. He was taken down 11 times by Merab on 49 recorded attempts. 49 takedown attempts. Merab is just a motor. Until that cardio goes, which it may never, the advantage is just too massive. And he's also bigger, thicker than Yan. Yan's also
He's
gonna have a
stocky.
size. Yeah, like he's also not as big as he is.
So in that
Low
first,
center of gravity.
yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
In that fight, he set I don't know how many records in terms of like takedown attempts. Like, imagine if he breaks it on this one. No, that'd be absolutely insane.
Well, he broke the single fight takedown record against Corey Sandhagen last time out.
Oh,
so,
he broke his own record?
I thought he did. Didn't
Okay.
he?
That he might have. I'll do some research.
I can't
I'll
like.
throw it-
I didn't look that up, but I could swear I remember that
Okay.
on the broadcast.
I'll do some
No,
research. I'll
you're
throw it on
right.
the screen so that the fans.
He
can-
definitely broke the takedown amounts. I don't know if he broke down the attempts, but I could be wrong.
Oh, maybe not that, but
Yeah, absolutely ridiculous.
successful takedowns is a bigger thing than the attempts too. But I understand
Oh,
your
yeah.
point with the repeated takedowns. Yeah.
It
It's
is,
just-
but for
yeah.
Merab, it's almost not. Like, that's kind of his game.
Yeah. No, you're wrong. You're right.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's get into our sports entertainment rating and tie a bow on this main event. Eric, what do you got for your sports entertainment rating out of 5 for each of those?
So for sporting, I'll go a 4 here. I think it's a really fun fight. And also, like, if you look at like what the betting lines previously were, Petr Yan was a -250 favorite, while Merab was a +200 underdog. It's crazy to even think about that now. And now you have, Merab's a -500 favorite, but there is something here. And also, like, he's kind of cleared out the division. So what else do you want at bantamweight? In terms of entertainment, I think that this could be another pretty boring fight. Could be a masterclass, but it could be pretty boring. So I was in between a 2 and a 3 on this one. I'll go 3. But I wouldn't hate him too.
I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna go with a 4 for the Sporting, just because. So a 5 for me would be Umar. I will
Yeah.
say that I think that is his toughest fight. But I'm not going lower than a 4 just because like I cannot feasibly think of anyone else besides Umar that I would put in this position right now. I just don't see any other contenders giving a tough fight for him. As far as entertainment, I'm gonna give this one a 3 because of the narrative around it in terms of this 4. Actually, that might even bump it to a. No, I'll give it a 3. I'll give it a 3. I think it's 3 just because of the achievement of him trying to get 4 in 1 year. But Scott, what do you think?
I'm giving it actually a 3 from a sporting perspective because I don't. This is not the number one contender, and also it's against a fighter who we've seen be very dominant against, and we've already kind of even talked out on the show why we see it to be such a high hurdle for Petr Yan to climb in this second matchup as well. So I think that's going to ding it a bit. Petr Yan is still a very much an elite bantamweight, but yeah, I'll give it a 3. I'm actually going all the way up to a 4 on entertainment, though. And the reason is because I think it's entirely possible that Merab puts on such a fascinating and entertaining performance in and of himself. And frankly, if Petr Yan can put together any sort of resistance to what we're talking about, that's going to make it hella intriguing. So I actually see much upside from an entertainment perspective in the cage. So I ended up with a 7. I believe you both ended up with a 7, but it was the opposite.
That's
You
a
had
7.
4 and
Yeah.
3, and I had 3 and 4. So that's a
Yeah.
7.
Okay, fair enough. I think that sounds about right.
That feels
Yeah.
that feels right.
Well, let's talk about our co-main event and see if it can get any higher. Alexandre Pantoja taking on Joshua Van. This one's it's I mean it's a flyweight fight, so we'll see how that goes. They can be up and down in terms of entertainment, but I will say Pantoja, he has been quite a dominant champion at 125. Obviously, there's a pretty high hurdle for him to reach what Demetrius Johnson did, but he's as dominant as a flyweight champion besides Demetrius could be, right? But I'll start with you, Scott. With that in mind, do you have any questions about him at this point in his title run? And if so, what are they?
Like obviously, yes, the whole Mighty Mouse thing is I think out of reach. It's nice that there's compliments being thrown out there by Joshua Van that this is the greatest flyweight of all time, respectfully, and I think very clinically I disagree. I think there's a lot of reasons for that. But
Yeah.
as far as Pantoja himself at this point, I think the main question I have as he's starting to get a little older here is just how much longer can his general strategy remain effective, right? He likes to get the back, he likes to get the fight to the mat, he uses a lot of energy in doing both. And essentially he takes rounds off more or less. We see it. He paces himself. He doesn't gas, but he paces himself. And as he gets older, that's only going to get more pronounced. I think it's going to get harder. I don't know that this is necessarily the fight where he's going to meet that brick wall, but there's going to be fights that come along at flyweight in the coming years where it's entirely possible he's going to have to find another way to win fights than we typically see him do.
Eric, what do you think? Any questions on your end?
Tons of questions about, at what point is his chin going to go? He's 35. He's fought 35 times. He's had the belt. This is, I believe it was his 4th or 5th defense. And for me, I wonder how long is this going to go? Like you mentioned it that, he takes rounds off. He also doesn't have the best striking defense, and without the grappling, if he ever runs into an opponent that's really good with takedown defense, maybe Joshua Van's that guy, maybe he's not. But if he ever runs into a fighter with really good takedown defense, Joshua Van's going to come in here, and if he gets clipped, there's no telling what will happen here. I think that, the question really is just going to remain, at what point is it going to go for Pantoja? Because 35 as a flyweight is, and it's not like was new to fighting. He's fought a lot. 35 for a flyweight, I mean, reality is this is when fighters usually start to go, especially at the lower weight classes. Once the athleticism starts to deteriorate a little bit, and he's been at the top for a while. He even said it when I talked to him. He's been at the top for a while. It was hard to, keep himself motivated at different points.
Yeah, 100%. And I like. I mean, I don't like it, but in terms of I see what you're saying in terms of like the age gap is also such a big disparity. It's 35 versus 24. So I think that's a pretty valid point. And Scott, essentially, like
I just did a quick fact check, by the way. This is his 5th title defense. I hadn't got the chance to double check. The
yeah,
Pantoja's up.
there's the
This will be
famous
number
photo of
5 if he
him.
can get through it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, maybe
That's
he'll go
right,
like
yes.
this. Yeah. But yeah, let's talk about that age disparity. And Eric, I'll go to you. At 24 years old for Joshua Van, do you think that he's ready for this type of opportunity against someone like Alexandre Pantoja?
Well, so that's the question of the whole fight, right? Van comes in here as a plus 205 underdog. And, Scott, you did a really good interview with Joshua Van last week. And I thought that there was a couple questions that you asked him and that I didn't love his answers, quite frankly. He was like, well, like, what's it been like since you fought Brandon? I was like, well, I got into a lot of stuff. It was like, well, what stuff? He's like, I don't want to talk about it, but like my coaches had to reel me in and get me back to training. And I don't want to hear that ahead of a title fight, especially if I'm betting on him. So from my perspective, at 24, I don't know if he's ready for this. It didn't sound. He didn't have me convinced in the interview, to be quite frankly. Do I think he's super talented? Hell yeah, and he's got the volume. He's got the striking. If he can defend takedowns, he could easily win this fight. But he didn't exactly sell it to me that he was ready for this opportunity. I'll say that.
What did you think, Scott?
Yeah, I was a little surprised that he was talking so openly about that, but also very clearly, like, I was trying to pull it out of him. What kind of stuff?
Yeah.
And he certainly it was enough that he wanted to keep to himself. So I thought that was very interesting. And look, I don't want to sit there and like, we're not, I don't think any of us is sitting there saying Joshua Van didn't earn this opportunity or he's not the #1 contender. I think we all kind of agree that he is the best suited guy to fight for this opportunity right now based on the results that he was able to just get. You skip past the line. I think that's fine. But also, yeah, I mean, if he's out there talking about this and he's saying, in other media that he doesn't have a game plan, if that's true, who knows? But if that's the case, and he's talking about, oh, I'm going to finish him by the 3rd round, that just sounds like braggadocio. It doesn't actually sound like any sort of calculated confidence to it. You're just taking him at his word that, hey, I've got what it takes to do it in the 3rd round. Well, why? Like, is there a plan? You just said there's not. So I don't know. It's kind of a weird thing with him. And I don't know if that's what you want to hear. Maturity wise, he just might not be ready. Maybe it doesn't matter though. We've seen fighters who are maybe immature and very willing to just fly off the handle in their personal lives. There was an Irish guy once that did that pretty well, but I don't know. Is that what Joshua Van is? We have to see.
Yeah, and I'll just add to that, like when you asked him the follow-up question, he was like, well, what do you mean by that? And then he kind of punted on it. My mind starts to wander. I'll be honest, especially in fighting. My mind starts to wander. Is like, okay, like you could have just said like, I don't know, I got some family stuff going on or something like that. But like my mind really started to wander there. It's like, well, what are you
You
what are
pulling
you
some
talking
John
about?
Jones stuff right now? No.
You have a title shot. You have a title fight coming up like in 2 weeks. Like, are you training? Like taking
But
it seriously?
that was months ago.
Yeah,
that was
yeah.
months ago. He made it clear that this is what he did in July. By August, his team pulled him back. So he's been dialed in for months. It's not like he just, maybe he did. I don't know. But like as far as what he was saying, he's talking about, all right, they pulled me back, and since August, I've been preparing. So
Yeah.
we'll take him at his word in that. He certainly. It seems like he's not necessarily looking to lie or fudge it. He's just maybe there's things he knows he shouldn't say out loud. So
Yeah.
I think we're taking him at his word.
Yes, and if we do take
Certainly
him,
not be the.
sorry,
Sorry, go ahead.
no, what were you gonna say?
He certainly wouldn't be the only fighter that needed to get me reeled in, during a training camp. Like it wouldn't be out of the ordinary.
Yeah.
Just the lack
Absolutely.
of answer, the lack of follow-up answer just concerns me.
Yeah, and if we do take him at his
And
word,
the fact
yeah.
that the gravity of this opportunity is such that it's like you're fighting for a title. This isn't just like, oh, I've got another fight coming up. You're going against somebody who is a dominant champion too. I mean, he's not Mighty Mouse Johnson, but there are several weight classes where we just don't see these people going for 5th title defenses at all, and he's already up to that point. This is somebody that's formidable and probably deserves a whole mess of your focus and time. And, again, he is 24 years old. Maybe he's just not quite mature enough for that. But his talent may be such, and his heart as a street fighter might be as such that it just doesn't matter. That is what's intriguing here, for me anyway.
100% what it is.
Yeah, and pretty much echoing all the things that you just said, Scott. And like, let's take him at his word for it, and take what we've seen from Joshua Van in his previous fights and what we've seen from Alexandre Pantoja. I'm curious to get your thoughts on this, Scott, and Eric, of course. In terms of Joshua Van, it seems like he is at heart like a striker. Like he started out street fighting, and like all of his wins have either come by decision or knockout. And Pantoja, like you mentioned, is a grappler. I feel like that's his strong suit, right? He will backpack you. He'll
his heart for sure.
Yeah, I feel like that part doesn't really go, in terms of the age being at flyweight. Like it's the speed that you're worrying about, that you're typically worried about for someone who's older in that weight class. I feel like Pantoja can probably stick with that game plan against Joshua Van, and I guess it's kind of up to the takedown defense, but I just see that as the path to victory for him. I'm curious your thoughts, Scott.
Like I think the thing with Pantoja and his takedowns is he's almost a little bit more like a Merab. Not in that he's a good takedown artist. That's not really his game. But the fact that he's very willing to just be dogged. If he doesn't get it, he's going to go for it. And again, that is draining, as I already spoke about. But he's not going to just give up because he didn't get the shot. Like he's probably going to try and stick to you like glue, and he might try to jump your back and that kind of thing. So there's a lot of things you just cannot do with him. You got to mind your P's and Q's, especially in those early rounds, the time when Joshua Van is talking, hey, I'm going to be ready for that kind of fight. I have no doubts that Joshua Van's going to have 5-round cardio. We haven't seen anything to doubt that. So if it goes to those deeper rounds, frankly, that's when I see more opportunities for Joshua Van. But I don't know. That's the thing with age, right? That's where you start to say, okay, that's got to be the advantage. We'll see. We'll see if it even gets there. We've seen a lot more finishes from Pantoja lately, guys.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes, we have. But
Certainly.
I think that might have to do with a little bit of no. I mean, he's obviously very, very good, and he's. It seems like he's kind of coming into his own. But I feel like what was it? Kaya Sakura was the defense he had back in
Kai Sakura. Yeah, he was a little overmatched, but
a little bit overmatched.
There's nothing wrong with Kai
No,
Kara-France,
no.
the other Kai.
The other
Kai,
yeah.
That's obviously that was a fight that
That's
we
a good
didn't
one.
necessarily see that happening, right?
Yes, yeah. So yeah, like you
Well,
said,
it's
these
weird.
two guys are these two champions are kind of coming into their own in terms of their finishing.
Certainly strange to look back on the Steve Erceg fight where Steve Erceg
know.
arguably was going to have that win in the 5th round before a tactical error. And then since then, he's down 3 of his last 4 fights, and he had to fight. Osborne was coming up in weight, and even that fight was close.
He had a murderer's row after that
Yeah.
fight, like very tough.
Yeah.
It's
But-
a game of inches, guys.
Yes, it is.
It
But
is a game of inches.
let's
And
go ahead.
I'll just say
yeah.
one thing. I'll just say one thing before we move on. Flyweight, generally for me, has always been a very thin margin weight class where a lot of these matchups kind of go as toss-ups. Brandon Royval, Brandon Moreno go back and forth, and and obviously Brandon Moreno, Davison Figueiredo was back and forth matchup. Pantoja, Brandon Moreno, very very close matchups anytime that they fought. So it's very thin margins weight class. So usually I have a pretty good read on this division, and underdogs would usually tend to have value for me, but the only question for Van is his age being so low and Pantoja's age being so high. It's like a athleticism versus mind matchup. It's interesting.
100%. Well, let's tie a bow on this co-main event and get into our sports entertainment rating. And Eric, I'll throw it back to you. I'm curious what you got.
Yeah, I think that's a fantastic fight in terms of, it's clear number 1 contender match for this weight class. I'm debating between 4 and a 5. I mean, there's no one else that I'd rather him fight at flyweight, so I'm gonna go 5 for sports ranking, and then for entertainment. I mean, I think that this fight's gonna end inside the distance, and I think that it's gonna be really entertaining. So it's hard to go 5 and 5 on a fight that's a co-main event, that's a title fight. But I mean, I'm kind of there. I'll go 5 and 4. Sports entertainment was sports 5, entertainment 4. But I think this is a fantastic fight. It's as good as it can get at flyweight right now.
I think I'm going to echo exactly that for all the reasons. I could see myself potentially, if we did like half points, like I'd do like a 4.5, just because like if we're getting a dream fight, I would say maybe Muhammad Mokaev. But like you don't know for a fact that he's like better than Joshua Van or like more of a number 1 contender. Joshua Van deserves the title shot, so I'm gonna give 5 and 4, like you said, Eric. But what do you think, Scott?
I got a 5 and 4 too. I think, again, number one contender, no question. Entertainment wise, flyweights tend to deliver. I'm not worried about that. I do wonder if there's possibilities where this fight doesn't really resemble the most exciting flyweight fight. Maybe a little more takedown heavy, but Joshua Van has good survivability, and it just kind of we see a rinse and repeat type of thing. That's the only concern that I have is that's a very real potential in my mind. Otherwise it'd be a 5. So I've got a 9. You guys have 9s. We all have the same score. This is a 9. We like this fight, guys.
Yeah, absolutely. Not too shabby for a co-main event,
Both
no?
fights we have the same scores. I mean a little bit different, but same total scores, which is a first time.
Yeah,
So
I
proud
think
of
that is the first time for all of us. Wow.
I think
But
so.
let's get into some of the other fights on UFC 323. And Scott, I'm going to throw it to you. What is your fight to watch?
Brandon Moreno against Tatsuro Taira here. I think the winner of that has a very real shot at getting the next title opportunity, especially if it's Taira. But also, they're still watching that Kyoji Horiguchi. I got to watch out for the Gooch situation in there. So I don't know. I don't know what we're going to do. But either way, even independent of the stakes, this is fun. This is going to be a lot of fun. Brandon Moreno and Taira bring it. And I love that this is a big test for Taira. He is ready for it. At least at this point, is he going to deliver on what he's ready for? I don't know, but this is the fight he should be having, so I love it.
I'm happy, thank you. That's the best. Eric, what do you got?
Yeah, so Jalen Turner versus Edson Barboza. I think Jalen Turner thinks that he's the unluckiest fighter in the UFC on the UFC roster, and I agree. He retired. He's very young and he's 14-9. I don't even think he's 30 yet. He might have just turned 30. But regardless, the Tarantula, split decision loss to Matus Gamrot that I think many thought was a bad decision. Dan Hooker split decision loss that I think people thought was really, really close. Arguably could have gone to Jalen Turner. Obviously, Jalen Turner also knocked down Renato Moicano, and he, he kind of just walked off there.
Oh, that was tough, yeah.
And then Moicano, gets the takedown, gets the TKO on ground and pound. He's obviously frustrated with how his career has gone. He's probably the best 14-9 fighter in UFC history. But regardless, he's back fighting Edson Barboza. Without going too long-winded here, Barboza obviously a veteran of the game, lost 2 straight. So, opportunity here for sure for Jalen Turner. Who's
Jalen
massive.
Turner of Fontana, California, by the way.
Oh, there you go.
All right. For me, I'm going with Henry Cejudo versus Peyton Talbot. And the reason why I'm interested in this one, and I'm not going to go too deep into it, because Eric, I imagine you've got something about these guys in 3 bets in 3 minutes, right?
No.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm gonna try and save some of that for you. The line is pretty interesting. I feel like Henry Cejudo is a gold medalist Olympic wrestler. Peyton Talbot, he obviously had some holes that he showed in his game against Raoni Barcelos. Raoni's obviously very good, and Peyton did make some corrections in his last fight, it seems, but there's a difference between those two guys and their level of takedowns and wrestling than someone like Henry Cejudo. I was just very surprised to see Peyton Talbot at such a heavy favorite against someone who's literally a former 2-time champion and gold medalist. So I'm just interested to see what Vegas knows.
Who's
that
about
I
to
don't.
retire?
Yeah, that is true.
This is his retirement fight. He's made it very clear this is the last one. I mean, MMA retirements are as such. He's already retired before, so
Yeah.
who knows? But this doesn't. He looks like a guy who right now has almost 1 foot out the door.
That is
That
true.
is the thing. That's the
Okay.
thing. Typically, you don't want to bet on fighters who are on their way out. I think the only time where I recommended betting a fighter that was on his way out was Robbie Lawler when he knocked
Yeah.
out Joe Price.
Yeah. I mean, that was a good one to take. But
That was a
yeah,
great win for me.
I am
still
interested in
remember.
this one and seeing how it would go. But maybe that is what Vegas knew that I did not. So I didn't know that this was his 100% out. So maybe that plays a factor
It's also
into
a
it.
big size disadvantage. 5'4" versus 5'10".
Yeah, that is true. Wow. Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, I'm
Yeah.
very curious to hear what you're going to say in 3 bets in 3 minutes. But
Yeah.
Scott, let's get to the event rating before we get to that. What do we got?
Guys, when we talked about this at the meeting, I was looking at this card and I was like, oh, maybe it's not as strong as some of these other ones. And obviously, I just didn't look that closely at it yet. This is a 97, guys.
Oh my
I
God.
was really surprised at the number when it got spit out, so I looked at it again more closely, and it really is just stacked top to bottom. 13 of the 28 fighters on the card are ranked in the top 20
Wow.
in their weight class. Bonkers.
That's
19 of them are in the
insane.
top 50. Only 4 of them are outside the top 100, and 6 are beyond the top 60. So we're really just talking about this is like truly elite mixed martial arts, top to bottom. I can't remember even a card like this. It's not like the top one of the year. It's actually top 26 all time, 20 years or so, I guess we call it, all time. But this also, just for context, man, like this is closing out just an insane year for pay-per-view strength and ranked talent. 8 events have 90 or better scores. 2021 was the last time we had so many 90 or better. They had actually a 9 that year, so we'll call this the best in 4 years in terms of that kind of thing, stacking these cards. 6 of these events this year, 95 or better. 3 of them, counting this, are in that top 26, like I mentioned. Really, it's kind of remarkable how impressive their entries have been closing out this year. And you could say maybe they were doing it to start the year because they were trying to put their best foot forward, try to get, hey, maybe more people want to invest in their product and get a better broadcast deal. And then they put together these cards at the end of the year where they've already made their bank. They know what's coming and they're still doing it anyway. Maybe it's just to close out pay-per-view in a bold way. I don't know, but it's fantastic. And we should be happy, I think.
We hope that it continues in 2026 under the new guys. So we'll see how it goes there. But if it's anything like it has been this year in terms of the quality of the fights and the rankings and all that, then I think we'll be pretty happy. But yes, Thanksgiving's passed, but that is something that I am thankful for. Eric, are you ready for your 3 bets in 3 minutes?
Get it. Thank you, Jake. UFC 323. We're going to do our best bets here. We're going to put 3 minutes on the clock, and here we go. We're going to start in the prelims. Bruno the Hulk Ferreira facing Marvin Vettori. Marvin Vettori fallen on hard times for sure. Lost his last 3 fights. I mean, look at the significant strike numbers that he's given up here. I mean, he's absorbed over 100 significant strikes in each of his last 3 fights. All losses. He made Roman Dolidze look good, even as a low-volume fighter. Bruno Ferreira has a win over Gregory Rodriguez. Has done a solid job. I think he's a little undervalued here. I think he should be favored by a significant amount. Minus 105 on the money line right now. Won his last 2. He has a win over Gregory Rodriguez, like I said earlier in his career. I think the Ferreira's got a grappling edge. If he's able to take it to the mat, Vittori's takedown defense is usually pretty strong. But I think Ferreira's the better striker. I think he's the A side here, and I think Bruno Ferreira gets it done. So that's best bet number 1. Probably my favorite one on the card. We move on to, and we talked about this earlier, Jake, Henry Cejudo versus Peyton Talbot. Look, Henry Cejudo is, we've talked about, 1 foot out the door a little bit here. He faces Peyton Talbot here, who's way bigger, 5'10", has really good power in his punches. I'm not so sure how much Henry Cejudo's even been training, honestly. Like how seriously is he taking this fight? I mean, he's not. I mean, he said that this is a retirement fight, and he's not. This doesn't have any title implications or anything like that. So, for me, I think Peyton Talbot doesn't defend takedowns too well. 76% takedown defense, and Henry Cejudo, he's so undersized that I have concerns about his ability to withstand the shots coming back at him from Peyton Talbot. So I'm going to take under 2.5 rounds here, plus 210. I just think that that's too high of a number. I understand that Cejudo's lost by decision in his last 3 fights and all that, and that's why it's plus 210, right? It's a little bit more of an underdog shot, but I like the shot here. I think that there's a world where Henry Cejudo lands a submission win or TKO from ground and pound, or Peyton Talbot finishes on the feet was probably the most likely scenario. But yeah, Peyton Talbot, Henry Cejudo under 2.5 rounds. We move on. Co-main event. And it is a big one. Alexander Pantoja versus Joshua Van. You'll notice I'm not picking the main event here. But for Joshua Van, he's 24 years old. He's got a lot to learn. I think that, and we talked about this, maybe this is a little bit too much too soon here. But I don't even have a bet on the fight. I have the fight doesn't go to decision minus 145. And I'll tell you why. Alexander Pantoja is really good at grappling, and I think that there's a way for him to finish this easily on the ground within 2 rounds. We've seen Joshua Van be taken down before. He got taken down against Rai Tassira. 4 takedowns there. I'm not sure what his scrambles look like. We haven't really seen a whole lot of them. He's never really defended submissions too much, but Pantoja's going to be going for him constantly. I think that a submission's on the table. I also think that the knockout's on the table, as I said before, if Van's able to connect on a big shot or something like that. So I'm going to take fight doesn't go to decision, minus 145 on DraftKings. Those are your 3 bets in 3 minutes. Let's make some cash.
Alrighty, thank you so much for that, Eric. So that closes out UFC 323, but we just got some fight announcements. I was just referencing Thanksgiving. On Thanksgiving Day, we got some fight announcements for UFC 324 and 325 on CBS Sports during NFL football, right? And there's been a lot of blowback, but let's go piece by piece. Let's start out with the main events because there's a lot to dissect here, right? I'll start off with UFC 324. And Eric, I'm going to start with you. Paddy the Baddy Pimblett announced is fighting Justin Gaethje for the interim lightweight title after Ilia Topuria put out a statement saying that he's dealing with some personal stuff. He won't be fighting in the first quarter of the year. There's been some blowback for this. Has the blowback been justified, in your opinion, for this title fight?
Undoubtedly, yes. The UFC is throwing Paddy Pimblett and Justin Gaethje here. Seems like kind of they're throwing Justin Gaethje a bone a little bit because Justin Gaethje was like, I'm going to retire if you don't give me a title shot. That's what it seems like. Look, I understand the blowback. I get it. People are upset because they think that, Arman is, he should be getting the title shot. He's the clear number one contender. And the fact that he's not even getting an interim bout really sheds, kind of a damper on, his outlook for the future. He might not be seen for the next year because of this, of what's going on here. And that's a bummer because, he looked amazing against Dan Hooker. It's a tough reality. And, a lot of people were frustrated, especially, some fighters. Like I believe Aljamain Sterling was one of them that, was like, this is, some WWE stuff. And it's like the top contenders don't get exactly rewarded for their, don't exactly, it's not a meritocracy to a point where it's gotten a little crazy, right? Like Paddy Pimblett's last 3 wins, I think that they were all on major losing streaks going into those. Like he never beat anybody
or
in the top.
then,
yeah. Or since then, yeah. And even coming into it, like, Michael Chandler, Tony Ferguson, like none of those guys are, winning fights consistently. And even Arman jokes, like everybody beats Michael Chandler. It's like, give me a real win. It's totally warranted. It'll be fun to watch, but matchup wise, what are we doing? It doesn't make sense.
One thing that I will say is you mentioned like appeasement of Gaethje. For me, I think it's less of an appeasement of Gaethje and more of like sticking it to Arman or like skipping over Arman, punishing him, whatever you want to call it. I'm not sure. What do you think, Scott?
I don't see why the UFC would appease Justin Gaethje or his management even, frankly, because I'm pretty sure they're pretty take it or leave it with most people. And as much as Justin Gaethje's a fun fighter, I enjoy watching him personally. I think a lot of people do. I don't think that's controversial, but they would move on without Justin Gaethje and they wouldn't look back. So I don't know how much they really care about that. I think it has much more to do with they needed somebody. They wanted to make a little splash. Paddy Pimblett has some name value here. Justin Gaethje's name value is probably much more than that of Arman Tsarukyan, even though just days ago he put together a fantastic performance in a main event that the UFC wanted you to pay attention to. That timing of that's very goofy. I don't love that kind of thing. No, I think absolutely everything's justified, but also I just don't understand why we need to have an interim belt on the line. I don't think you need it. This fight is going to be fun in and of itself anyway. Do people generally get much more excited because there's interim gold on the line than when there's not? I don't know how much people care. Maybe it's a bit. UFC obviously thinks so. I don't.
I have an answer to that, but we're going to talk about it in a bit.
Well, so I think that the reason that that they're putting an interim belt on it is because this is a fight night fight. This is a fight night main event without it, and that's just a fact. These guys
a fun one.
Not ranked. It's a fun one, but neither of these guys are ranked in the top 3 of the division. This is very important. Like they are fighting. They're fighting for a belt. I mean, get ready. Paddy Pimblett is going to have 0 wins inside the top 10, and he is going to fight for a belt. It's crazy.
Yeah, an interim belt, I suppose, but yeah, it's just
matter.
in case he's still in the top 10 at lightweight, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Got you.
He's fighting for a belt.
Yes.
If he wins, he will have a win
I still
inside
don't
the
even
top.
really count it.
If he defeats Justin Gaethje, if Paddy Pimblett defeats Justin Gaethje, there's one.
Yes,
there's one.
There's one. There we go. But yes, I will get into the other stuff in there. But as far as it being, I feel like it could be. Let's say Pantoja wasn't fighting Joshua Van on the card this weekend. I feel like this would be easily slottable for a co-main event without the interim title on there too. It's big enough for that. So it's
I just also
yeah.
Okay. Sorry.
No, that finished up.
Also worth noting, Charles Oliveira, Max Holloway, not heard from. I would venture to guess that they're fighting for the BMF title probably in March.
Yeah, but that one makes sense, I would say. Like, either of those guys, if they were put into the interim title shot, I'd be like, why?
Oliveira versus Paddy Pimblett would have been a great fight. I understand that Oliveira just got knocked out by Topuria, so if he wins, that would have been annoying. But I don't think that Oliveira winning the interim belt for whatever reason would preclude them from making Arman versus Ilya. I just don't understand the thought process here at all.
Yeah. Well, we're going to get back to UFC 324 in a bit, but let's keep with the main events of these announcements. Alexander Volkanovski is not going to be fighting Lerone Murphy or Movsar Evloev, but is going to be rematching Diego Lopez with literally his last title defense being against Diego Lopez. Scott, I have to ask you about this one. Is the blowback justified for this main event? What do you think?
I'm actually much more like kind of heated about the 325 main event than I am that 324 one we just spoke about, because frankly, we just saw this, guys. Like, we don't need this, and there are two very clear contenders that you just mentioned. And frankly, Volkanovski seemed like he was up for fighting Murphy, and I don't think anyone would have argued. He's coming off of an insane KO knockout of Aaron Pico just 6 months ago. Was it that long ago? I'm like almost losing track of my year, but frankly, was it Newark? No, it wasn't Newark.
Lerone knocked out Pico on the Khamzat Dricus card. That was August.
So that was August, yeah. So very recently. I mean, why aren't we capitalizing on this? Frankly, I can't imagine a scenario where Lerone Murphy puts out a better highlight between now and then if he has to fight again. If he goes out there and they do him versus Evloev and say, okay, one of you is going to emerge and you'll be the definitive contender, I don't know how good you're going to look beating Movsar Evloev potentially. It's probably not going to be a potential KO of the year.
Yeah.
What are we doing here? Just do that fight. This is not against Diego Lopez, and he put out a nice performance against John Silva back in September. That at least got him back on the right track. But if we look back at that fight against Volkanovski back in April, it's not like anyone thought he won. It's just that he beat expectations. And I think there's a problem with we get into this scenario where, okay, you did better than we thought you would. So now you're a better fighter than we thought. But what if that was the very best version that we are ever going to get? And then we go back and we get, okay, this is like a waste of time. And also, it could go the other way. I will give you that. But he hasn't necessarily earned it over Lerone Murphy. And I don't even know that it's necessarily a more entertaining fight. Like, it was probably a slightly better fight, but that highlight from Lerone Murphy, I mean, you could play that. That's going to sell a fight, I think, a little bit. So the fact that they didn't go that way, it just doesn't make any sense. And why don't you listen to the champion here? The champion wants a fresh fight. He wants this fight. No one would have been mad at it. Just do it. I don't know.
Yeah, I completely agree. The 324 one, I've had people ask me, because obviously, I can't get through a conversation without the first 10 seconds saying that, I like UFC. And people who do know about it, they're like, what did you think about the fight announcements? Like, do you have any problems with them? I was like, I can excuse the Paddy and Gaethje one. Number one, because it's an entertaining fight, and I'm actually excited to watch that one. Like, as a fan, it has intrigue to it. I want to see who would win, and it's going to be entertaining, right? And then also on top of that, I feel like if you're going to start off the year, that's the type of fight that you'd want to put on. I get it from a business perspective. This one I cannot excuse, like, at all. I can't rationalize it in my head as to why it would even sell better. We just saw that fight in Volkanovski's last title defense, and it was in April. I don't understand it.
I think it can sell better in the Latin market. He obviously has appeal, especially in Mexico. But he's also Brazilian too, so that brings in a couple of the markets there.
Sure.
But I don't know. There's also the English market here. I mean, we could talk about the UK as something for Lerone Murphy. I don't know why. Right? Am I mistaken? He's British.
He is British, yes.
Yeah. For a second, I blanked for a second. But yeah, okay. I don't know why we can't just do that. That shouldn't be such that it takes over everything. I don't know that we have that type of
Totally.
thing here, where it's like, man, like he's not bringing in China or Russia or something with like a giant following that's going to change things or draw gigantic numbers. I don't see that being such a big thing. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know.
I can't remember a case where it's just like such favoritism might be the wrong word, but that's what I'm going to use. Like such blatant favoritism for a title shot. Like thinking back to like Colby Covington facing Leon Edwards, like that was one where I thought that was just like strange. This one that beats that by a mile, in my opinion. What do you think, Eric?
I mean, I'll just point out Lopez is 6-3 in the UFC. It's not like he's running through everybody. Lerone Murphy's undefeated. Like this just makes no sense from that perspective alone. And then also like Diego Lopez lost to Movsar Evelev. I know that fight was really close and it was short notice and blah blah blah. I get it, but again, he lost. He lost the fight. There was a decision on that fight. He lost. So I'll be honest. I actually am more passionate about the Gaethje Paddy Pimblett one than I am about this one. Mostly because I think that Diego Lopez will have a really competitive fight with Alexander Volkanovski, and I think that there's just so much like it. Aside from the Aaron Pico knockout, a lot of Lerone Murphy's fights have been, I guess, quote unquote, boring. I like decisions. I don't care if it goes to decision. Like that doesn't matter for me at all. But some other like some fans just they want to see knockouts, they want to see blood, they want to see guts. Look, whatever. That I guess different strokes for different folks. And if that's what sells, that's fine. From me, I think I'm more into the art of it, and I think that like Lerone Murphy and Movsar Evelev were more deserving of the title shot. Volkanovski just beat Diego Lopez, but I think that the high of the UFC Noche card was so high that the fans were going so wild when Diego Lopez got the win that's kind of what carried him here. It makes no sense though. I hate it.
Alrighty, so let's dial it back to 324 and get into this co-main event that I was referencing. And part of the reason why there's blowback for the interim title for Gaethje and Paddy, Amanda Nunes and Kayla Harrison, not the main event as the undisputed 135 title. Actually, I'll throw this one to Eric. Why was this one not a headliner over the interim title?
Your guess is as good as mine. I have no idea why this is not the headliner. It's the biggest fight in women's history. And, Ali Abdelaziz even said that this fight should sell more than Conor McGregor versus Khabib Nurmagomedov. Obviously, it's not going to. But I think that this fight should be headlined and billed as the main event. I don't understand why it's not. And, frankly, I almost expect the UFC to go back on this. And, eventually they have to see this, right? These are two fighters that are in the interim lightweight championship fight, that are 4 and 5 in the division versus the clear 1 and 2. For UFC bantamweight. There's no reason for it. I hate it. This is probably the one that I'm most passionate about. This is just terrible. This is terrible billing. And it's just bad for women's MMA. This is going to be a really fun fight. It's not going to be a boring grapple fest or whatever. It's going to be really entertaining. So I think that should be the main event. I don't know why it's not.
Scott, what do you got?
It's entirely possible this is the greatest women's fight of all time. I mean, there's a short conversation that it's in for sure, but Dana White is calling this the greatest women's fight of all time. And if he thinks that the greatest women's fight of all time is a co-main event, what does that tell you about how the UFC views women's fights? They are not going to headline numbered events. And it doesn't even matter about pay-per-views anymore. They're just not going to do that. And I don't think that's look, I don't know that the women are always moving the needle anymore. Ronda Rousey was a unique case. We've had, I think Holly Holm had a little bit to her, even Chris Cyborg. But I think here, this is the fight that really ought to be doing that. And the fact that they didn't want to do it in this case, I don't really understand it. It's just clear they just don't think that much of women's MMA in this current 2020, it'll be 2026 world we live in. That's unfortunate. I think we should have done it here.
I'll never forget back in the day when Amanda Nunes versus Cyborg was the co-main event. I believe that John Jones was the main event, which makes sense. But that's fine.
That was a stacked card. Yeah,
that was a loaded card. But this one, I violently disagree with.
Yeah, and
actually, if I'm not mistaken, I want to say that the heavyweight title fight was on the line for that one, and that was Stipe versus Daniel Cormier.
Sorry.
Okay. I don't
No. You're right, Eric. You're right. UFC 232 was John Jones Gustafsson for the vacant light heavyweight title, and I believe
yes,
the co-main
that's
event.
right.
That's what I was.
I remember that was one of the first UFC cards I ever watched.
Yep.
I talked to John before that one too. That's funny. I forgot that.
Now it's all coming back for us, right?
Yep.
But to go back
I'm
to,
old, guys. I'm 40.
To go back to what I was saying before, I think that's the only reason why this one is actually 4. And I don't know if they would have made it an interim title fight if it wasn't the case that Kayla and Amanda are also on this card, because they wanted to obviously put Patty and Gaethje over that one. I actually don't know if they would have made it an interim title fight if that wasn't the case. So that's my hypothesis. I could be wrong, but yeah. Another announcement that we did get, which let's talk about some good news, right? There are new main card start times. Main cards will be starting at 9 p.m. Eastern. Scott, as a father and just a human being in general, and an East Coaster, what are your thoughts on that?
Much more of an East Coaster. They did an experiment with the 9 p.m. main card start times for the numbered events way back in, I believe it was 2011. And that lasted like a good 8 months or so, and I loved it. I also didn't have children at that point, guys. I was young. So I really love that they're going back to that. I think it's definitely going to raise the profile of this sport on the East Coast, where most people in our country live. It's just the way it is. I think that's always a great thing. And hey, not for nothing, our outlet, the New York Post, is going to make it a lot easier to get these results into the paper when we've got an extra hour to get it in. We have a very late deadline compared to a lot of newspapers, but even at that, it was still tricky. I like having this. I think a lot of people in our area, our part of the world, they're going to be thrilled. The people in Europe are certainly proud. I know Sean Sheen was like, hey, I'll take an hour earlier. That was good.
100%. Eric, I mean, we're all East Coasters, but yeah, what do you think?
I'm hyped. This is awesome. That's it.
It has been resounding, like, yays across the board. I can't believe that they didn't do this sooner. I mean, I'm sure they could probably explain it beforehand on like what metrics they were going for. I don't know, but we'll take it, right?
For the West.
When I got the press release from, because I received an embargoed press release early from the UFC to know what was going on with the 324 announcement, and we had that written up and we got that up immediately. When I got to the part about the start time, that was the part that I was easily the most excited to see. It's not the fights, it was the start time.
Yeah. 324 and 325 will come and go. The start times, that's forever.
When I interviewed Dana White in August, I asked him that question, and I was like, he didn't know the answer then, but it's a good question.
It was too early. They obviously didn't know anything at that point, did they?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, we got it.
Well, now we know, and very much looking forward to that 9 p.m. start time. But let's talk about some of these smaller news items that have occurred since the last time we spoke. Scott, why don't you take it away for quick hits?
Yeah, so actually, these are almost like, sometimes we have some like negative things, like there's like people in the world who unfortunately pass away or get arrested or whatever. This is all like fight stuff, right?
That's good.
Unfortunately, we are starting with one negative thing in that realm, though, because Tom Aspinall, he revealed this week that he has been diagnosed with bilateral traumatic Brown syndrome, which affects both eyes. He has not been training or medically cleared. It sounds like he is very far from out of the woods after absorbing that eye poke from Cyril Gane in their title fight in October. So that bears monitoring as well. And we certainly wish the champion well. And the hope is that he can continue his career and be able to make nice living for his family over in the UK. Ronda Rousey, she's back in the news. I mean, we've been talking about her a little bit more this year, but she's, as reported by Boxing Scene, in active negotiations to box Katie Taylor. This would be the UFC Hall of Famer's boxing debut, and it would come against a dominant current champion in the ring. There's some conjecture about some other fights that could be in the mix, but let's stick with the one that's being a little more reported here, which is this boxing match, and we'll see if it even happens. Something else that's kind of been, up and down as far as the reporting of it. You alluded to this earlier, Eric. Charles Oliveira, in an Instagram story post, he ruled out January for his return for the bantamweight title fight against champion Max Holloway, but he did make it sound like all parties are interested in it, and yes, they are looking at that March or April
BMF
window.
Title, rather.
BMF.
What did I say?
You said bantamweight, but it's okay.
Bantamweight, BMF, that's fine. Yeah, no, we're good. You got me. Appreciate it. Yep, keep it moving. We've got the former UFC middleweight champion, Sean Strickland, His suspension is just about to expire, or just expired from the Nevada State Athletic Commission. We reported on that earlier this year. He said in an Instagram video that he turned down fighting at 325 in Australia, but he does want to fight Anthony Fluffy Hernandez as long as it's on U.S. soil. So there is that to keep an eye out for. Maybe that's going to get made. We'll see. Some unfortunate news with UFC 324. We didn't even make it to the show where we got to talk about those announcements before we lost one of the fights. Alexa Grasso, we learned she's not going to be fighting Rose Namajunas because Grasso had to pull out of that fight. Natalia Silva has stepped in. And frankly, this is definitely an opportunity for her to put a stamp on that flyweight title shot. It's between her and Erin Blanchfield. I guess we'll see what comes out of this situation. And frankly, if Rose Namajunas gets it there, then that changes the perspective a little bit too, even with Erin's win over her. We'll see. A lot of permutations there. And the last thing, we're going over to the PFL side. They announced this week that former Bellator middleweight champion who was potentially going to represent them as a champion, lost his title fight earlier this year. Johnny Eblen, he has re-signed with the promotion. Maybe we'll see him try to gun for that title again.
All right. Thank you for that, Scott. And guys, it is time for the final round where we watched the Mirko Cro Cop experience, as Scott has dubbed it. 11 fights across Mirko Cro Cop's career, spanning, I think 2 or 3 years? Unbelievable.
I believe it was 5 years. I want to say it's 03 to
Excuse
07.
me. Yes, I can't do math. That's why I'm in video. But my God, this guy, murderer. Like, I know he fought the axe murderer. I feel like this name is like almost just as proper for Mirko. That left high kick. Come on, man. I mean, like he's got a baseball.
He doesn't
bat.
need a nickname. He's the Cro Cop. He's the Croatian cop.
Unbelievable. Eric, what did you think? What was your favorite one out of all these?
The Vanderlei Silva one was just crazy.
Shocking.
I mean, Vanderlei Silva's, his whole side of his face is just busted up. I'm pretty sure the eye's pretty much closed. He throws a left high kick, definitely never saw it coming, and just flatline. That was crazy. Mark Coleman was a good one as well.
Mm-hmm.
I was actually kind of surprised. I didn't expect
Igor
him to lose.
Vovchanchin, he put him out hardcore.
Yes.
That was a big one.
That one
that was crazy too.
There was also there were some scary ones, man.
So I knew that Cro Cop beats I knew that Cro Cop beats Gabriel Gonzaga later in his career, so I had actually thought that Cro Cop was going to beat Gabriel Gonzalez in this fight. And when I was watching it, and I was like, "Whoa, he lost by head kick to Gabriel Gonzalez? What?" I was just shocked by that.
So there was a good surprise in there for you. Nice.
Yeah. Oh yeah, big surprise there at the end for me. So that was fun. God, Cro Cop was, big takeaway also. The Boss Rutan interviews were awesome. And something that I wasn't super familiar with previously. I knew Boss Rutan obviously from podcasts and other stuff, but Boss Rutan's personality is really fun in Pride. I enjoyed it.
He's so good.
He's a fun dude. Yeah, absolutely. But I'm glad you guys got to see all these because obviously there were some range of different types of knockouts too. It was mostly, left kick cemetery. You saw some right kick hospital with like the leg kicks that KOs and that kind of thing. But man, I mean, there was a liver kick knockout. There was leg kick finishes. There were soccer kicks that would end the fights.
Oh.
You guys aren't used to seeing too many soccer kicks, so that was probably neat.
That was also something that that was like, I wonder why the UFC refused to put that in because it doesn't look super damaging, although it probably is.
Well, it's the commissions. It's not the UFC.
I will. Okay, I am reaching back into my memory, but I think this might have been a John Danaher quote, so I know he's not a doctor, but in his opinion, soccer kicks are one of the most devastating things that can be thrown to a person in terms of hurting someone, to kill someone.
Really?
That's something that it's basically akin to curb stomping or something like that. It's not good for you. But that is John Danaher, not a doctor.
Nothing is in this game, but yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
I get it, but also I'm kind of okay with it because these fighters would be okay with it too.
That is true. Oh, before we move on to the yeah,
doesn't that hurt does that hurt the metatarsal bones in your foot? I feel like somebody would break their foot on it. Oh.
Yeah. If you're hitting right over here, that's got to be. Yeah.
I feel it with the foot, yeah, but I mean you don't want to land with the instep ideally with kicks, but obviously that is soccer kicks a little different, so yeah.
Before we move on to the next assignment, Scott, because you definitely do have more knowledge about this. Isn't there some lore about Mirko Cro Cop that he was a secret agent or something like that for the Croatian Secret Service or something like that? Or am I making that up in my head?
I'm not familiar with that particular thing. He used to be in, I believe he was in the military police, or in
That's what
just
it
he
was.
was actual policeman or something
Okay.
like that. He was definitely in the military at one point too, and
Yes.
I'm aware of that. But yeah, that was because his last name is not Krokop. He is
No,
Mirko Filipovich.
Okay.
So just know that Krokop is the nickname that he just goes by. Kind
Mm-hmm.
of like Chris Cyborg
Yeah.
was not born to Mr. and Mrs. Cyborg.
Yes.
yeah.
Okay. That makes sense. And I think maybe the like secret spy agent or something like that came off of him being in the military or something like that. I feel like I've heard that before.
He's not at liberty to say.
No, exactly. But let's talk about our next assignment, Scott. What do you got for us?
I'm giving you guys Justin Gaethje. We're talking about him. I'm giving you guys the original UFC Justin Gaethje fight. Eric's probably watched this. I don't think you have, Jake, but it's against Michael Johnson back in 2017. This was Gaethje's again UFC debut. He had already made a name for himself as kind of like one of the bigger names to come along through free agency. He was with World Series of Fighting. He was undefeated at this point. That promotion then eventually morphed into PFL. So that's kind of the origins there, Jake, if you weren't aware. Johnson, he came into this one, he'd lost 3 out of 4, but he was in the middle of this like absolute murderer's row of fights.
Yeah.
He had in sequence Prime Edson Barboza, Beneil Dariush, Nate Diaz, Dustin Poirier, who he knocked out in that fight, and then Khabib Nurmagomedov. This was all in the 2 years preceding this fight against Justin Gaethje. So, when you look at his record, it's not impressive. But if you look at the opponents, man, Michael Johnson fought everybody.
Yeah, that is absolutely insane. I'm looking forward to it. I actually don't know who wins this one, so very much looking forward to that
Have a
one.
good time.
Yes. And then what do we
Sure.
got for this week in MMA?
This week in MMA, I'm going back to December 2nd, 2018. This was UFC 218 in Detroit. Francis Ngannou just obliterates Alistair Overeem with the uppercut from hell all the way to heaven that sent Overeem into another dimension. I mean, single best highlight of Ngannou's combat sports career. One of the best heavyweight knockouts ever for my money. If you haven't ever seen that, Jake, I
Yeah.
encourage you to go find that highlight. It is a very short fight.
I've seen the highlight. I actually haven't watched it all the way through, but I don't imagine it takes very long. Like
You don't need. I think it only goes like a minute and a half. So
Yeah.
frankly, you saw everything you needed if you saw the punch.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. And then to wrap up our show, if people are looking for one more fight to watch this weekend outside of the major promotions, what do we got?
Guys, this is like a real like fight card here. It's ACA 197. This is a Friday, midday morning kind of thing. The prelims start at 7:40 in the morning. Main card at 12:10 or so. Streams free at aca-mma.com, and I got all the information from Caposa, his website. Fortunately, that was a big help for me. But this card, guys, it's not just like one fight or two fights. It is stacked. It is possibly the most stacked non-UFC or PFL event that we're going to see out there, period. It has an event rating of 10. Guys,
Okay.
this beats some Apex cards, okay? 24 out of 32 fighters on this card are top 100. 6 of them are in the top 51 at lightweight alone.
Wow.
Light heavyweight, my mistake. There's a matchup at the top between two top 30 light heavyweights. It's Adlan Ibrahimov against Muslim Magomedov. Magomedov, he is 15-0. He's 30 years old, comes out of Dagestan. You got to wonder if he's on the UFC sooner than later, especially if he can get through this fight against Ibrahimov. But there's also a fight on here, 2 of the top 35 flyweight talents as well. It really is like, if you want to see the best of the best that are not in the UFC or PFL, this is where you go. And look, it's a little problematic. ACA has its very clear associations with Ramazan Kadyrov, the Chechen dictator. If that's your bar that you won't clear, I'm not going to tell you should do that. But like, frankly, the fights themselves are fantastic, and you want to see who else is fighting in the world that's at the top. Watch these guys.
Alrighty. Well, thank you for that, Scott. I mean, I was not aware, and for those at home who are not as well, now we know. If you don't know, now you know, as a certain person likes to say. But thank you guys so much again for joining me on this episode of Against the Cage. For you at home, watch those fights and enjoy this weekend, and we will see you on the next one.